All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to This Explainer, where today we're going to unpack a truly fascinating and honestly pretty nostalgic piece of Lost Americana. We're diving deep into the sensory and sociological history of truck stop dining. For decades, these independent diners were this massive cornerstone of American culture. They were serving up hot, scratch-made meals to the folks who literally kept our country's supply chain moving. But as we're going to see, this entire rich food culture basically vanished from our interstates. Just think about this quote for a second. A driver eating a microwave burrito alone in his cab at midnight is a different kind of lonely. Wow, that right there brilliantly captures the real emotional stakes of our explainer today. Because we aren't just talking about losing a great recipe for meatloaf, right? We are talking about the loss of vital, fundamental human connection. These diners were absolute community hubs for people whose entire job was, by definition, to be isolated. So, let's start with Section 1, the comfort of home. Let's time travel a bit, back to the golden era of trucking, the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Imagine being a long-haul driver, away from your family for weeks, just crossing hundreds of miles of empty highway. A truck stop meal served as this incredibly warm, grounding anchor. It was literally a slice of home right there on a heavy white diner plate. And what's absolutely wild about these mid-century staples is the sheer value and the hearty real ingredients. A patty melt on rye for just 75 cents, you had SOS for 65 cents, or check this out, a cube steak smothered in gravy, giving a tired driver a proper steak dinner experience for 85 cents. These dishes were the fuel for the nation's long haulers. And that brings us to the holy grail of comfort food, the pot roast plate. For around $1, a driver could sit down to a chuck roast that had been braising in a heavy pot for 4 hours, the broth just naturally thickening up as it cooked. Drivers would specifically hunt this down on Sundays because, well, it tasted exactly like a mother's winter kitchen. And that is exactly why this mattered so much. It was the absolute closest thing to going home without actually having to go home. We're talking psychological sustenance just as much as physical calories here. Moving right along to Section 2, food as highway fuel. Now, these places didn't just provide comfort. They actually engineered their food for stamina, alertness, and pure utility behind the wheel. Take the counter jar pickled egg, for example. Almost every independent truck stop had this giant glass jar sitting right by the register. Just eggs floating in this bright magenta brine of vinegar and beet juice. For 25 cents, you got this massive, quick hit of protein, salt, and electrolytes. Drivers crossing the Rockies in the dead of winter absolutely swore by these things. Why? Because that sharp vinegar woke them up way better than a cup of black coffee ever could. Plus, that vinegar environment meant bacteria couldn't survive, even with the jar just sitting out at room temperature. Next up, we have SOS, or creamed chipped beef on toast. Now, the military had a slightly more colorful name for it, but this was a foundational staple brought home by GI truckers returning from Korea and Vietnam. The genius of SOS was its efficiency. It delivered this massive punch of protein, salt, and starch, all melting into this hot, easy-to-eat mess, again, for just 65 cents. It was fast, kept you full for hours, and cost the diner next to nothing to whip up. And if you look down south, it brilliantly shows how regional utility kept these guys going. Truckers running cotton and timber up the eastern seaboard lived on red-eye gravy. They take a dry-cured country ham, pan-fry it, and then, this is the best part, deglaze that screaming hot cast-iron skillet with black coffee. What's so amazing to me is that these truck stops relied entirely on direct, local relationships with farmers to get that ham. It was a hyper-local supply chain that, quite frankly, is almost completely extinct today. And losing that tie between the highway and the local land, that's a huge piece of this puzzle. Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, the unwritten social contract. Because you see, this era wasn't just about the salts or the protein or the calories. In reality, paying for the meal was really just your ticket into the room. When you dropped 85 cents on a hot turkey plate, you were buying into a social contract. You were buying warmth, waitresses knew your name by your second visit, the cooks remembered exactly how you licked your eggs, you got bottomless coffee, but most importantly, you got a hub. A place to sit with other drivers, trade critical intel about open waystay stands or nasty weather up ahead. It was a literal lifeline that broke up the crushing isolation of a 600-mile stretch of empty interstate. And right at the center of all this was the 3 a.m. coffee and homemade pie. Guys, this wasn't dessert. The caffeine kept you alert, the sugar kept you moving. But beyond that, a warm slice of fresh pie, baked by a local baker who came in before dawn, eaten at a counter next to 2 other exhausted men, that was the closest thing to a hug a working man got all week. The drivers absolutely loved this food. I mean, they begged to keep it. So, looking at all this incredible culture we've just covered, we really have to ask ourselves, how does an entire American food culture just completely disappear? Well, the cold, hard truth boils down to one word: math. The industry might try to tell you that taste changed or that drivers wanted different things. That's just not true. These beloved scratch-made meals, they were killed by boardroom spreadsheets.
And that brings us to Section 4.
killed by the spreadsheet. This was a massive structural shift in how America moved its goods, and it fundamentally altered the long-haul diet forever. Think about it. In the 1960s, these independent stops were doing 3-hour prep times, serving real protein at community counters. But by the time the 1990s rolled around, corporate chains had taken over. They demanded extreme speed, rock-bottom labor costs. A meal had to be assembled by a teenager in under 4 minutes using shelf-stable ingredients from a central warehouse. They effectively traded 3-hour simmered beef tips for frozen burger pucks, powdered gravy, and profound isolation inside the cab of a truck. Which brings us to the most tragic part of this whole story. Section 5, the modern human cost. What's so devastating about this shift is that we didn't just lose great food, we actually shortened people's lives. The health outcomes are staggering. In the 1960s, truckers were getting 3 hot meals a day, real vegetables, real protein, social walking breaks. They actually had lower disease rates and lived longer. Fast forward to today, and the modern trucker is often fighting diabetes by 50, literally forced to eat microwave taquitos at midnight. By swapping out real food for highly processed corporate convenience, this new business model directly manufactured a modern health crisis. Today's truckers actually die younger than they did 50 years ago. That is heartbreaking. To really put this into perspective, you just have to look at a trucker named Earl Schmidt. Back in 1962, Earl kept a notebook of every single meal he ate while driving Route 66. The guy drove 80,000 miles a year. His diet: coffee, meatloaf, mashed potatoes, and pie. His total food cost for a trip from Knoxville to Albuquerque was an absolutely unbelievable $18.47. And despite sitting behind a wheel all day and eating all that hearty food, he maintained a weight of 178 pounds and lived a long, healthy life to the age of 92. It is just such a stark contrast to the reality these drivers face today. So, as we wrap up this explainer today, I want to leave you with a bit of a challenge. There are still a few holdouts out there. I challenge you to go find one of those small, independent diners, order a real scratch-made meal, and support the folks who are still doing it right. Because when we traded community for corporate convenience, we obviously didn't just lose a great plate of food on the highway. We have to ask ourselves, what else are we currently trading away without